Hi, Corinne, Kay, Bob, Helen, Toni. Today we are reading the poetry of William Butler Yeats, 1865 to 1963. Jennifer, is this coming across okay in terms of who you see on the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I will introduce the readers after my introduction, and for my introduction, I'm going to read a poem. In memory of W.B. Yeats, died January 1939 by W.H. Auden. It's in 3 parts. 1, he disappeared in the dead of winter. The brooks were frozen, the airports almost deserted, and snow disfigured the public statues. The mercury sank in the mouth of the dying day. What instruments we have agree, the day of his death was a dark, cold day. Far from his illness, the wolves ran on through the evergreen forest. The peasant river was untempted by the fashionable quays. By mourning tongues, the death of the poet was kept from his poems. But for him, it was his last afternoon as himself. An afternoon of nurses and rumors. The provinces of his body revolted. The squares of his mind were empty. Silence invaded the suburbs. The current of his feeling failed. He became his admirers. Now he is scattered among 100 cities and wholly given over to unfamiliar affections, to find his happiness in another kind of wood and be punished under a foreign code of conscience. The words of a dead man are modified in the guts of the living. But in the importance of noise of tomorrow, when the brokers are roaring like beasts on the floor of the bourse, and the poor have the sufferings to which they are fairly accustomed, and each in the cell of himself is almost convinced of his freedom, a few thousand will think of this day as one thinks of a day when one did something slightly unusual. What instruments we have agree, the day of his death was a dark, cold day. 2, you were silly like us. Your gift survived it all. The pariah of rich women, physical decay, yourself. Mad Ireland hurt you into poetry. Now Ireland has her madness and her weather still, for poetry makes nothing happen. It survives in the valley of its making, where executives would never want to tamper, flows on south from ranches of isolation and the busy griefs, raw towns that we believe and die in. It survives, a way of happening, a mouth. 3, earth, receive an honored guest. William Yeats is laid to rest. Let the Irish vessel lie emptied of its poetry. In the nightmare of the dark, all the dogs of Europe bark, and the living nations wait, each sequestered in its hate. Intellectual disgrace stares from every human face, and the seas of pity lie locked and frozen in each eye. Follow, poet, follow right to the bottom of the night with your unconstraining voice. Still persuade us to rejoice. With the farming of a verse, make a vineyard of the curse. Sing of human unsuccess in a rapture of distress. In the deserts of the heart, let the healing fountain start. In the prison of his days, teach the free man how to praise. February 1939. The magnificent readers in order of appearance are Corinne Conley, Kay Weissman, Bob Mirisch, Helen Richman, Toni Sawyer. Here's Corinne Conley.
To the rose upon the rood of time. Red rose, proud rose, sad rose of all my days, come near me while I sing the ancient ways. Cahulan battling with the bitter tide, the druid gray, wood-nurtured, quiet-eyed, who cast round Fergus dreams and ruin untold, and thine own sadness, whereof stars grown old in dancing silver-sandaled on the sea, sing in their high and lonely melody. Come near, that no more blinded by man's fate, I find under the boughs of love and hate, in all poor foolish things that live a day, eternal beauty wandering on her way. Come near, come near, come near. Ah, leave me still a little space for the rose breath to fill, lest I no more hear common things that crave, the weak worm hiding down in its small cave, the field mouse running by me in the grass, and heavy mortal hopes that toil and pass. But seek alone to hear the strange things said by God to the bright hearts of those long dead, and learn to chant a tongue men do not know. Come near, I would, before my time to go, sing of old era and the ancient ways. Red rose, proud rose, sad rose of all my days. The Lake Isle of Innisfree. I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin build there, of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honey bee, and live alone in the bee-loud glade. And I shall have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the vales of the morning to where the cricket sings. There midnight's all a glimmer, and noon a purple glow, and evening full of the linnet's wings. I will arise and go now, for always, night and day, I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore, while I stand on the roadway or on the pavements gray. I hear it in the deep heart's core. The sorrow of love. The quarrel of the sparrows in the eaves, the full round moon and the star-laden sky, and the loud song of the ever-singing leaves had hid away earth's old and weary cry. And then you came with those red mournful lips, and with you came the whole of the world's tears, and all the trouble of her laboring ships, and all the trouble of her myriad years. And now the sparrows warring in the eaves, the curd pale moon, the white stars in the sky, and the loud chanting of the unquiet leaves are shaken with earth's old and weary cry. When you are old. When you are old and gray and full of sleep and nodding by the fire, take down this book and slowly read, and dream of the soft look your eyes had once, and of their shadows deep. How many loved your moments of glad grace, and loved your beauty with love false or true. But one man loved the pilgrim's soul in you, and loved the sorrows of your changing face. And bending down beside the glowing bars, murmur a little sadly how love fled, and paced upon the mountains overhead, and hid his face amid a crowd of stars. Who goes with Fergus? Who will go drive with Fergus now, and pierce the deep wood's woven shade, and dance upon the level shore? Young man, lift up your russet brow, and lift your tender eyelids, maid, and brood on hopes and fears no more, and no more turn aside and brood upon love's bitter mystery. For Fergus rules the brazen cars, and rules the shadows of the wood, and the white breast of the dim sea, and all disheveled, wandering stars.
To Ireland in the coming times. Know that I would accounted be true brother of that company, who sang to sweeten Ireland's wrong, ballad and story, ran and song. Nor be I any less of them, because the red rose bordered hem of her, whose history began before God made the angelic clan, trails all about the written page. For in the world's first blossoming age, the light fall of her flying feet made Ireland's heart begin to beat. And still the starry candles flare to help her light foot here and there. And still the thoughts of Ireland brood upon her holy quietude. Nor may I less be counted one with Davis, Mangan, Ferguson, because to him who ponders well, my rhymes more than their rhyming tell of the dim wisdoms, old and deep, that God gives unto man in sleep. For the elemental beings go about my table to and fro. In flood and fire and clay and wind, they huddle from man's pondering mind. Yet he who treads in austere ways may surely meet their ancient gaze. Man ever journeys on with them after the red rose bordered hem. Ah, fairies, dancing under the moon, a druid land, a druid tune. While still I make, I write for you the love I lived, the dream I knew. From our birthday until we die is but a winking of the eye. And we are singing in our love, the mariners of night above. And all the wizard things that go about my table to and fro are passing on to where may be in truth's consuming ecstasy. No place for love and dream at all. For God goes by with white footfall. I cast my heart into my rhymes, that you in the dim coming times may know how my heart went with them after the red rose bordered him. The hosting of the sheep. The host is riding from Knocknarea, and over the grave of Cloth Nabar, Caiozzo tossing his burning hair, and Neve calling, away, come away. Empty your heart of its mortal dream. The winds awaken, the leaves whirl around, our cheeks are pale, our hair is unbound, our breasts are heaving, our eyes are agleam, our arms are waving, our lips are apart. And if any gaze in our rushing band, we come between him and the deed of his hand. We come between him and the hope of his heart. The host is rushing twixt night and day. And where is their hope or deed is fair? Caiozzo, tossing his burning hair, and Neve calling, away, come away. Michael Robartes bids his beloved be at peace. I hear the shadowy horses, their long manes a-shake, their hoofs heavy with tumult, their eyes gleaming white. The north unfolds some clinging, creeping night. The east, her hidden joy before the morning break. The west weeps in pale dew and sighs passing away. The south is pouring down roses of crimson fire. Oh, vanity of sleep, hope, dream, endless desire. The horses of disaster plunge in the heavy clay. Beloved, let your eyes half close and your heart beat over my heart and your hair fall over my breast, drowning love's lonely hour in deep twilight of rest and hiding their tossing manes and their tumultuous feet. The Cap and Bells. The jester walked in the garden. The garden had fallen still. He bade his soul rise upward and stand on her windowsill. It rose in a straight blue garment when owls begin to call. It had grown wise-tongued by thinking of a quiet and light footfall. But the young queen would not listen. She rose in her pale nightgown. She drew in the heavy casement and pushed the latches down. He bade his heart go to her when the owls called out no more. In a red and quivering garment, it sang to her through the door. It had grown sweet-tongued by dreaming of a flutter of flower-like hair. But she took up her fan from the table and waved it off in the air. I have cap and bells, he pondered. I will send them to her and die. And when the morning whitened, he left them where she went by. She laid them upon her bosom under a cloud of her hair, and her red lips sang them a love song till stars grew out of the air. She opened her door and her window, and the heart and the soul came through. To her right hand came the red one, to her left hand came the blue. They set up a noise like crickets, a chattering wise and sweet, and her hair was a folded flower, and the quiet of love in her feet. Ed thinks of those who have spoken evil of his beloved. Half close your eyelids, loosen your hair, and dream about the great and their pride. They have spoken against you everywhere. But weigh this song with the great and their pride. I made it out of a mouthful of air. Their children's children shall say, they have lied.
Adam's Curse. We sat together at one summer's end, that beautiful, mild woman, your close friend, and you and I, and talked of poetry. I said, a line will take us hours, maybe, yet if it does not seem a moment's thought, our stitching and unstitching has been naught. Better go down upon your marrow bones and scrub a kitchen pavement or break stones like an old pauper in all kinds of weather. For to articulate sweet sounds together is to work harder than all these, and yet he thought an idler by the noisy set of bankers, schoolmasters, clergymen, the martyrs call the world. That woman then murmured with her young voice, for whose smile's sake there's many a one shall find out all heartache. In finding that it's young and mild and low, there's one thing that all we women know, although we never heard of it at school, that we must labor to be beautiful. I said, it's certain there is no fine thing since Adam's fall, but needs much laboring. There have been lovers who thought love should be so much compounded of high courtesy that they would sigh and quote with learned looks precedents out of beautiful old books. Yet now it seems an idle trade enough. We sat grown quiet at the name of love. We saw the last embers of daylight die and the trembling blue-green of the sky. A moon, worn as if it had been a shell washed by time's waters as they rode and fell. About the stars and broke in days of yore. I had thought for no one but your ears, that you were beautiful, and that I strove to love you in the old, high way of love, that it all seemed happy, and yet we'd grown as weary-hearted as that hollow moon. September 1913. What need you being to come to sense, but fumble in a greasy till and add the halfpence to the pence? And prayer to shivering prayer until you have dried the marrow bone from the bone. For men were born to pray and save. Romantic Ireland's dead and gone. It's with O'Leary in the grave. Yet they were of a different kind, the names that stilled your childish play. They have gone about the world like wind. But little time they had to pray, for whom the hangman's rope was spun, and what, God help us, could they save? Romantic Ireland's dead. It's with O'Leary in the grave. For it was this the wild goose spread the gray wing upon every high tide. For this that all that blood was shed. For this Edward Fitzgerald died, and Robert Emmett and Wolfe Tone. All that delirium of the brave. Romantic Ireland's dead and gone. It's with O'Leary in the grave. Yet could we turn the years again and call those exiles as they were in all their loneliness and pain? You'd cry, some woman's yellow hair has maddened every mother's son. They weighed so lightly what they gave, but let them be. They're dead and gone. They're with O'Leary in the grave. The wild swans at cool. The trees are in their autumn beauty. The woodland paths are dry. Under the October twilight, the water mirrors a still sky. Upon the brimming waters, among the stones, are 59 swans. The 19th autumn has come upon me since I first made my count. I saw, before I had well finished, all suddenly mount and scatter wheeling in great broken rings upon their clamorous wings. I have looked upon those brilliant creatures, and now my heart is sore. All's changed since I, hearing at twilight the first time on this shore, the bell beat of their wings above my head, trod with a lighter tread. Unwearied still, lover by lover, they paddle in the cold, companionable streams or climb the air. Their hearts have not grown old. Passion or conquest wander where they will, attend upon them still. But now they drift on the still water, mysterious, beautiful. Among what rushes will they build? By what lake's edge or pool? Delight men's eyes when I awake someday to find they have flown away. The fisherman. Although I can see him still, the freckled man who goes to a gray place on the hill in gray Connemara clothes at dawn to cast his flies. It's long since I began to call up to the eyes this wise and simple man. All day I looked in the face what I had hoped would be, to write for my own race and the reality, the living men that I hate, the dead man that I loved, the craven man in his seat, the insolent, unreproved, and no knave brought to book, who has won a drunken cheer, a witty man and his joke aimed at the commonest ear, a clever man who cries, the catch cries of the clown, the beating down of the wise and great art beneath, beaten down. Maybe a 12 months since, suddenly I began in score of this audience, imagining a man and his sun-freckled face and gray Connemara cloth climbing up to a place where stone is dark under froth, and the downturn of his wrist when the flies drop on the stream. A man who does not exist, a man who is but a dream, and cried, before I am old, I shall have written him one poem maybe as cold and passionate as the dawn. Easter, 1916. I have met them at the close of day, coming with vivid faces from counter or desk among gray 18th century houses. I have passed with a nod of the head, or polite, meaningless words, or have lingered a while and said polite, meaningless words, and thought before I had done of a mocking tale or a jibe to please a companion around the fire at the club, being certain that they and I but lived where motley is worn, all changed utterly. A terrible beauty is born. That women's days were spent in ignorant goodwill, her nights in argument, until her voice grew shrill. What voice more sweet than hers, when young and beautiful, she rode to harriers. This man had kept a school and rode our winged horse. The other, his helper and friend, was coming into his force. He might have won fame in the end, so sensitive his nature seemed, so daring and sweet his thought. This other man I had dreamed a drunken, vainglorious lout. He had done most bitter wrong to some who are near my heart. Yet I number him in the song. He too has resigned his part in the casual comedy. He too has been changed in his turn, transformed utterly. A terrible beauty is born. Hearts with one purpose alone, through summer and winter seem enchanted to a stone to trouble the living stream. The horse that comes from the road, the rider, the bird that range from cloud to tumbling cloud. Minute by minute they change. A shadow of cloud on the stream changes minute by minute. A horse hoof slides on the brim, and a horse splashes within it. A long-legged moor hens drive, and hens to moor cocks call. Minute by minute they live, the stones in the midst of all. Too long a sacrifice can make a stone of the heart. Oh, when may it suffice? That is heaven's part, our part to murmur name upon name, as a mother names her child when sleep at last has come on limbs that had run wild. What is it but nightfall? No, no, not night, but death. Was it needless death after all? For England may keep faith for all that is done and said. We know their dream enough to know they dreamed and are dead. And what if excess of love bewildered them till they died? I write it out in a verse. MacDonough and McBride and Connolly and Pierce, now and time to be, wherever green is worn, are changed utterly. A terrible beauty is born.
Second coming. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming. Hardly are those words out when a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight. Somewhere in sands of the desert, a shape with lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun is moving its slow thighs, while all about it reel shadows of the indignant desert birds. The darkness drops again, but now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. Leda and the Swan. A sudden blow. The great wings beating still above the staggering girl, her thighs caressed by the dark webs, her nape caught in his bill. He holds her helpless breast upon his breast. How can those terrified, vague fingers push the feathered glory from her loosening thighs? And how can body laid in that white rush but feel the strange heart beating where it lies? A shudder in the loins engenders there the broken wall, a burning roof and tower, and Agamemnon dead. Being so caught up, so mastered by the brute blood of the air, did she put on his knowledge with his power before the indifferent beak could let her drop? Sailing to Byzantium, that is no country for old men. The young in one another's arms, birds in the trees, those dying generations, at their song the salmon falls, the mackerel crowded seas, fish, flesh or fowl, commend all summer long whatever is begotten, born, and dies. Caught in that sensual music, all neglect monuments of unaging intellect. An aged man is but a paltry thing, a tattered coat upon a stick, unless soul clap its hands and sing, and louder sing for every tatter in its mortal dress. Nor is there singing school, but studying monuments of its own magnificence. And therefore I have sailed the seas and come to the holy city of Byzantium. O sages standing in God's holy fire, as in the gold mosaic of a wall, come from the holy fire, burn in a gyre, and be the singing masters of my soul. Consume my heart away, sick with desire, and fastened to a dying animal, it knows not what it is, and gather me into the artifice of eternity. Once out of nature, I shall never take my bodily form from any natural thing, but such a form as Grecian goldsmiths make of hammered gold and gold enameling to keep a drowsy emperor awake, or set upon a golden bough to sing to lords and ladies of Byzantium of what is past, or passing, or to come. Under Ben Bulben, swear by what the sages spoke round the Murrietta lake, that the witch of Atlas knew, spoke, and set the cocks a crow. Swear by those horsemen, by those women, complexion and form prove superhuman. That pale, long-visaged company that heirs an immortality, completeness of their passions won. Now they ride the wintry dawn where Ben Bulben sets the scene. Here's the gist of what they mean. Many times man lives and dies between his two eternities, that of race and that of soul. And ancient Ireland knew it all. Whether man dies in his bed or the rifle knocks him dead, a brief parting from those dear is the worst man has to fear. Though gravediggers' toil is long, sharp their spades, their muscles strong, they but thrust their buried men back in the human mind again. You that Mitchell's prayer have heard, send war in our time, O Lord. Know that when all words are said and a man is fighting mad, something drops from eyes long blind. He completes his partial mind, for an instant stands at ease, laughs aloud, his heart at peace. Even the wisest man grows tense with some sort of violence before he can accomplish fate, know his work, or choose his mate. Poet and sculptor, do the work, nor let the modish painter shirk what his great forefathers did. Bring the soul of man to God, make him fill the cradles right. Measurement began our might, forms a stark Egyptian thought, forms that gentler Phidias wrought. Michelangelo left a proof on the Sistine Chapel roof, where but awakened Adam can disturb globe-trotting madam till her bowels are in heat. Proof that there's a purpose set before the secret working mind, profane perfection of mankind. Quattrocento can paint on backgrounds for a god or saint. Gardens where a soul's at ease, where everything that meets the eye, flowers and grass and cloudless sky, resemble forms that are or seem when sleepers wake and yet still dream, and when it's vanished still declare, with only bed and bedstead there, that heavens had opened. Gyres run on, when that greater dream had gone. Calvert and Wilson, Blake and Claude prepared a rest for the people of God. Palmer's phrase, but after that confusion fell upon our thought. Irish poets, learn your trade, sing whatever is well made. Scorn the sort now growing up, all out of shape from toe to top, their unremembering hearts and heads, base-born products of base beds. Sing the peasantry, and then hard-riding country gentlemen, the holiness of monks, and after porter drinkers, randy laughter. Sing the lords and ladies gay that were beaten into the clay through 7 heroic centuries. Cast your mind on other days, that we in coming days may be still the indomitable Irishry. Under bare Ben Bolden's head, in Drumcliff churchyard Yeats is laid. An ancestor was rector there long years ago. A church stands near, by the road an ancient cross. No marble, no conventional phrase. On limestone quarried near the spot, by his command, these words are cut. Cast a cold eye on life, on death. Horsemen passed by.
An Irish airman foresees his death. I know that I shall meet my fate somewhere among the clouds above. Those that I fight, I do not hate. Those that I guard, I do not love. My country is Kiltartan Cross. My countrymen Kiltartan's poor. No likely end could bring them loss or leave them happier than before. Nor law nor duty bade me fight, nor public men nor cheering crowds. A lonely impulse of delight drove to this tumult in the clouds. I balanced all, I brought all to mind. The years to come seemed waste of breath, a waste of breath the years behind, in balance with this life, this death. Among the school children, I walk through the long schoolroom, questioning. A kind old nun in a white hood replies, The children learn to cipher and to sing, to study reading books and history, to cut and sew, be neat in everything. In the best modern way, the children's eyes in momentary wonder stare upon a 60-year-old smiling public man. I dream of a Ledean body bent above a seeking fire, a tale that she told of a harsh reproof or trivial event that changed some childish day to tragedy, told, and it seemed that our two natures blent into a sphere from youthful sympathy, or else to alter Plato's parable into the yolk and white of the one shell. And thinking of that fit of grief or rage, I look upon one child or t'other there and wonder if she stood so at that age. And even daughters of the swan can share something of every paddler's heritage. And had that color upon her cheek or hair, and thereupon my heart is driven wild. She stands before me as a living child. Her present image floats into mine. Did quattrocentro fingers fashion it hollow of cheek, as though it drank the wind and took a mess of shadows for its meat? And I, though never of Ledean kind, had pretty plumage once. Enough of that. Better to smile on all that smile and show there is comfort, a comfortable kind of old scarecrow. What mother of shape upon her lap, honey of generation had betrayed, and that must sleep, shriek, struggle to escape, as recollection or the drug decide, would think her son, but did she but see the shape, with 60 or more winters on its head, a compensation for the bang of birth or the uncertainty of his setting forth? Plato thought nature had but a spoon that plays upon the ghostly paradigm of things. Soldier Aristotle played the tawse upon the bottom of the king of kings. World famous golden-thighed Pythagoras figured upon a fiddlestick of strings. What a star sang and careless muses heard, old clothes upon old sticks to scare a bird. Both nuns and mothers worship images, and though the candles' lights are not as those that animate a mother's reveries, but keep a marble or bronze repose, and yet they too break hearts. Oh, presences, that passion, piety, or affection knows, and that all heavenly glories symbolize. Oh, self-born mockers of man's enterprise. Labor is blossoming or dancing where the body is not bruised to pleasure soul, nor beauty born out of its own despair, nor blear-eyed wisdom out of midnight oil, a chestnut tree, great-rooted blossomer. Are you the leaf, the blossom, or the bowl? Oh, body sway to music. Oh, brightening glance. How can we know the dancer from the dance? The circus animals' desertion. I sought a theme and sought it in vain. I sought it daily for 6 weeks or so, but Maybe at last, being a broken man, I must be satisfied with my heart, although winter and summer till old age began, my circus animals were all on show. Those stilted boys, that burnished chariot, lion and woman, and the Lord knows what. What can I but enumerate old themes? First, the sea rider, Ocean, led by the nose through 3 enchanted islands, allegorical dreams, vain gaiety, vain battle, vain repose, themes of the embittered heart, or so it seems, that might adorn old songs or courtly shows. But what cared I that set him on to ride? I starved for the bosom of the fairy bride. And then a counter truth filled out this play. The Countess Kathleen was the name I gave it. She, titty crazed, had given her soul away, but masterful heaven had intervened to save it. I thought, my dear, must her own soul destroy. So did fanaticism and hate enslave it. And this brought forth a dream, and soon enough, this dream itself had all my love and thought. And when the fool and blind man stole the bread, Julian fought the ungovernable sea, heart mysteries there, and yet when all is said, it was a dream itself enchanted me. Character isolated by a deed to engross the present and dominate memory. Players and Paige's stage took all my love, and not those things that they were emblems of. Those masterful images, because complete, grew in pure mind, but out of what began. A mound of refuse, or the sweepings of a street, old kettles, old bottles, and a broken can, old iron, old bones, old rags, that raving slut who keeps the till. Now that my ladder's gone, I must lie down where all the ladders start, in the foul rag and bone shop of the heart. Never give all the heart. Never give all the heart, for love will hardly seem worth thinking of to passionate women if it seems certain. And they never dream that it fades out from kiss to kiss. For everything that's lovely is but a brief, dreamy, kind delight. Oh, never give the heart outright, for they, for all smooth lips can say, have given their hearts up to the play. And who could play it well enough if deaf and dumb and blind with love? He that made this knows all the cost, for he gave all his heart and lost.
Thank you all for such a superlative reading. We see the love, his sense of Ireland, his sense of the race of the Irish, the sense of wonder, the myths, the symbols in his poetry. We have about 4 minutes left. Why don't we each take 45 seconds or so and start with Corinne, and then go to Kay, Bob, Helen, and then Toni, and say what you would like about the poetry or the reading. Corinne?
Well, I was just loving it, and I've never felt so Irish in my life. I just feel as though ancestors are singing through me. And I had an old grandmother who gave me lots of wisdom with her accent, and I had none of that, but somewhere it's there. But I'm I must say, at the end of this, when Toni was reading, for he gave all his heart and lost. I mean, there's some really sad stuff in here, but my goodness, it was beautiful and so lyrical. I did love it, and so I must really be very Irish.
Okay.
Well, I did what I always do. I read it and then I couldn't understand anything. So I kept reading and reading and reading. And then I did something that's probably not ethical or whatever. I've read it with a really strong Irish accent.
Yes,
and
right.
I had the best time. And I started to understand it. And hopefully I let some of that go as I was reading it. But it's so beautiful. I just had the best time. I'm enjoying this so much, learning so much.
Bob?
Well, I have no Irish in me, none whatsoever. But I had difficulty with this. I must have read it both to myself and out loud, maybe 50, 60 times. I don't know. But it got, the rhythm of it got to me. The melody of what he was saying. And I don't know all those guys he refers to in his poems. You know, they all got buried or hung or something from their Irish revolutionaries. But he's interesting and difficult and a challenge.
Helen?
Yeats is prophetic, remarkably so, in that he is writing, when he was writing, it's almost like the chaos that we are experiencing today. He almost was envisaging this kind of thing happening. And to talk about the second coming being this monster, it was almost frightening to read this poetry, because it's like he was way back then saying, "Look out, world! We better remember the past a lot more than we are."
Toni?
I find him incredibly musical. He plays so many different notes. He's almost like a symphony orchestra. And I think so much comes from his soul and his heart. I just find him absolutely wonderful. I loved researching him.
Well, he was a singer, certainly, and all you people really fulfilled the words. And so thank you, Toni, Kay, Helen, Bob, Corinne, and here's our leader, Jennifer. So thank you all very much. It was a wonderful reading.
I wanted to let you know before you go that we've had a couple of comments in the Q&A section. I've been transported. Thank you all. Ooh. And wonderful. Thank you so much. XOXO from Phoebe. And I have to agree. I do have quite a bit of Irish in me, and I felt my ancestors gathered around me saying, just be still and listen, be still. So thank you all. Harry, tell me what's up for next week.
Next Tuesday, we have a great reading from Wendell Berry's book, This Day Collected in New Sabbath Poems. This was Bob Beecher's idea, and the readers are Corinne Conley, Bob Beecher, Helen Richman, and Kay Weissman.
Right. The High Holy Days are coming up. Yeah. Great. Thank you guys so much. Beautiful as always. It's these readings. I love all of the people that you bring in from around the globe, Harry. But these readings sing to me. Yeah. Thanks, guys.